Hi, it's Jasmine. You know, that girl who did you know what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy train with me, Jasmine St. Clair. All aboard! Welcome to this week's episode of Krazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair. This next guy has rocked many people throughout the Cat House days and the Sunset Strip, or most of all, from when MTV was actually really cool and relevant. So let's welcome to the show none other than the host of Headbangers Ball, Riki Rachtman. You look so good. I just have to say, Riki, you do.
It's a filter. I got a filter on. It takes 20 years off your age, so I only look 60 now.
I thought it was the love of heavy metal.
Yeah, it could be that too. It could be a little bit of everything.
Now, I know you've probably told the story a million times, but I've never really heard it from you directly. How did you even get involved in Headbangers Ball?
A lot of people knew me in the music scene because I owned the Cat House, which is like the greatest rock and roll club ever. And I owned that, and I was just like this punk kid on the streets in Hollywood, smashed all the time, but somehow me and Tammy are running this great club. And then as the story goes, Faster Pussycat was on MTV and Tammy was on Headbangers Ball. And he goes, "I'm going to give a shout out to my roommate, Riki. Probably digs hearing his name on MTV." And I said, "Man, that would be a cool thing to do." And Axl heard it. So Axl goes, "You want me to make a call?" And I thought he was joking. So Axl Rose pretty much set up my audition. And then he said, "Do you want me to go to New York with you?" I'm like, okay. And I'd never been on TV, never done radio, never done any of that stuff. And so we flew to New York and there were, I was not good for a while on that show because I didn't know what I was doing. But the difference was that I had never been on radio and TV and everybody knew that. I was never in charge of any videos that were played ever, which, has always been kind of something that pissed me off because I think the show would have even done better if there was a little bit more diversity. But, now that it's been so long and people still know me from Headbangers Ball, I'm very proud of that and very, very lucky to have gotten that job. But, to say was it Axl Rose that helped you? Absolutely. I have no problem. Axl was very helpful with my club, the Cat House, and everything. I mean, I haven't spoke to him in 20 something years, but I'm still very appreciative.
That must have been very wild traveling with him. I'm sure there are a lot of very unhinged stories about his behavior.
Some I can tell, some I cannot.
What?
Some I can't tell. Some I
you can't. You got to leave the mystique out there because that's the whole thing. Is we existed before the internet. It was just a beautiful time, right? And now you have shit like TikTok. And I saw your TikTok video the other day. I get it. You all are on TikTok because you want people to like you. What are your thoughts on all these social media apps?
I hate it. I here's what it is. Okay, I hate it, but I use it. And when I use it for what I want it to be, it's a lot of fun. I went on tour and did 40 shows in America, 4 in Australia. And the truth is, people probably wouldn't have been at those shows if it wasn't for social media because I don't have a publicist or manager or anything like that. So social media, people would write about it. "Oh, I just went to a show, it was great." And then it would spread. So I was going into towns that shows were sold out. And I know a lot of it has to do with social media. But I don't understand how I can write about absolutely anything. I can say, you know what? I said something. I don't even remember what it was. Something so random. And it was like somebody posted, "Well, of course you would say that being a liberal with a cucumber in his mouth." And I'm like, dude, I didn't say where I am politically because I don't post that on social media. But it's like people will take absolutely anything, and they'll make it political. And there's people on the left and right that are all guilty. And it gets me aggravated because these are people that I will never see that sit back and they write something heinous when these people don't realize if they spend just a minute writing something positive about somebody, it might help them along the way to actually get a job instead of being, can I swear?
Yeah.
Instead of being some stupid fuck sitting at home looking for people to talk shit about. And these people will never, ever say anything to your face. But instead, if they took that same time to write to somebody and say, hey, you know what? You look really good in that. Or, hey, I like your view on that. Well, that puts positivity out there. It's going to make them feel better. And you never know, saying something nice to somebody might help you in the long run. Got news, brothers and sisters, talking shit on the internet, you will never get anywhere. Nothing positive will come from talking shit. I know that. I just went on a tangent. I'm sorry. I drank cat.
No, I like it when you do that. I do the same thing. I wish
I do. I get very passionate about a lot of things. And I'm lucky that now I'm at the point of my career that I don't have to kiss anybody's ass. I say what I want to say. I believe that I never thought that my shows were inspirational. And if I told people it was inspirational, they never would have probably gone. But, there's a lot of stories in my show about losing everything, about that one time in my life where I lost everything. And I was, it got really, really bad. And I talk about it in great detail in my show, things that people never knew. I didn't talk about my relationships much in the past or online, but on stage, most of them, I tell people that they go, oh, I didn't even know you were with her. I didn't even know that happened. So, I speak very openly about everything on stage, mostly.
It's such a terrifying thing. Because you have a lot of stories. I had to reduce my one-woman show from 2 hours to an hour, okay? The workshop performance was almost 2 hours long. Did you find that you were losing people live at all when you're on stage for that long? And do you have stage fright? Because I have stage fright, like you wouldn't believe.
My show was supposed to be about an hour and a half. And the first show I did in Charlotte, which sold out, which I never knew, and I was a wreck every minute until I got on stage. And I took a break at an hour and a half, and I said, I'm running late. It's already been an hour and a half. And everybody's like, let's keep on going. Anybody that knows me that knows I'm very depreciating. I don't talk highly about myself. I have certain issues, but I'm very proud of One Foot in the Gutter show. And it didn't get one single bad review, even with the length of the show. I remember when people were telling me that Henry Rollins was doing shows for 3 hours. I'm like, who's going to go to a 3-hour show? But the last show that I just did in Las Vegas was 3 hours. The show I did in Hollywood was 3 hours, and the two sold out shows that I did in Charlotte were 3 hours. When I went to Australia, I made the show shorter, but I haven't had any complaints. If I ever did another show, it would be shorter. If I did another tour with another show, it would not be. I don't need to do a 3-hour show, but it just turned out 3 hours, and then I'm like, okay, what part do I take out? Do I take out this part? Do I take out that part? I mean, I'm an hour and a half in the show, and I haven't even talked about MTV yet. And then a lot of the portion, a lot of the show goes to where, I don't know if you know what happened to me in the radio in LA. And
I do. The punch.
Yeah. Well, yes, all of that. And, most people never knew about the Janine stories that I had. And I told some of those, but nothing disrespectful to her. And about losing absolutely everything and how tough it is to be the guy from MTV and the guy from radio. And then you're selling cars. And then, I tell everything. I tell about the times that I was dealing drugs. I talk about being addicted to crystal meth. I talk about all the arrests for fighting that I've had. And I talk about that, not like I'm so cool, like, yeah, I got really low. But I hope people realize that no matter how low you get, the one saying that I always say at the ending of my every single show is, you never know when you're going to have the best time of your life. And there's so many people out there that are either suicidal or going through a hard time. And I know because I've been there myself, but you just don't know. I mean, to be at my age on tour, having the best time of my life, when I used to literally sit there and go, what if the 80s and 90s were the best time of my life? And I remember sitting there and I wasn't in a relationship and I was sitting there alone. And I was like, what if the best time of my life was in the 80s and 90s? And it's not. I mean, the best times would just finished. And I hope I can keep it going so I can have more best times.
I think you will. I mean, I think it's great you did a show. I want to take my show back on the road next year. I'm just giving the whole thing a facelift a little bit. And I'm excited. I want to see your show one day. So I hope you take it back on the road. What I was about to ask you, because I just get so mesmerized by you when we talk or when we've spoken or right now, motorcycles. Because I remember that was one of our first things. So now I own 2 bikes. Yes. Do you still have the same bike? And what was your whole fascination with it?
We did go riding together, right?
Yeah.
I thought we did. Remember? Yeah, I know. But
we ran into Steve Jones too.
As of right now goes, I've ridden a motorcycle coast to coast 14 times. Most of the times were by myself. One summer, I got on my bike and I decided, you know what, I'm going to ride in 48 states. And I left and I rode in 48 states. I've gone coast to coast many times with my wife. I've been to Mexico to Canada twice. I've ridden in France, and I didn't do a ride this year. And I haven't really announced it yet. But what my goal is next year I want to ride to Alaska, because that's the only state I haven't ridden a motorcycle in. So I got to figure out what kind of bike to ride, because I don't think I can take a regular bagger. I think it's got to be an adventure bike. But I love riding motorcycles, and I love it more than anything. And I love going into states where I don't know anybody and I don't know where to eat. And, when I would get, I was in a bad relationship when I first started riding long distance. So I would just disappear because I was riding away from something. So there was times that I'd sit in a restaurant by myself and realize I haven't said anything all day. And then there's times you pull into some small town and, I go on social media and say, I'm going to be in Wichita Falls. Where should I eat, or whatever? And people suggest where to eat. And I was always, very happy to meet people on the road to say, hey, I might be at this gas station, and people would meet me. And I raised a shitload of money for different charities. None of it went to me. And I love riding motorcycles. And I ride motorcycles probably for different reasons than other people do. I mean, I ride motorcycles I just need to get out there and clear my head. Even if I have a stereo system on my bike, I usually don't listen to music. I just sit there and think. And, we do have a bike night out here that I ride to, but usually I just ride a lot by myself, or Leo will get on the bike with me, or if the occasion comes up that I can ride. I love riding with people. I just don't have a lot of people that I ride with now, but I would, if I was in LA, I'd love to go riding with you and go riding with a bunch of people and stuff like that. Cause I miss that. I miss that part of LA.
Yeah. It's become so congested. It's so dangerous. And I got another bike, which is a lot smaller, and I can zip through things quicker. I have a Ninja 400 in candy apple red, and I have a 650 S Falcon, which is like that's the loud one that I take up north. Like, go up to Cambria, there, go up to Monterey, and people hear you. Like, I change out the muffler so it's a twin brothers, so it's really loud. I can make car alarms go off. What's it like for you?
Almost every ride I do, I stay in Cambria.
Really?
Into Cambria. One year, stupid idea, I decided I was going to go to the very start of PCH and ride it all the way to LA, thinking it would take a day, and it does not. But every time when I first started riding, and I decided to ride up to, Canada, I'd always stop in Cambria, or if just to go to San Francisco, I'd stop in Cambria. It's just a really neat little town.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's neat. It's all kinds of like mom pop businesses for those of you who've not been there. And it's very much a small town vibe. They will not let anyone open a big franchise, which I wish you'd see more of these in small towns, USA, just not like only in one state. Because I haven't seen anywhere that doesn't have like big franchises, or at least one big franchise store. I rode to Cambria during one of the coldest winters during LA. I went through like Lompoc late at night. I didn't realize like how cold it was. I didn't have heated gloves that time. Man, oh man, I was just so grateful to get to like a room with a fireplace, even though it was a fake fireplace. Yes. Well, let me ask you, when you post on social media, because I don't like, how do you have the patience, and do you even have anyone helping you with this, with the hashtags and this and that? Because I just don't get it. Like, I still can't do it.
I don't have anybody helping me with anything. I mean, it's because I'm a control freak, and everybody says work smarter, not harder. Well, I work harder instead of working smarter. Yeah. I got to figure out the social media. I mean, everybody's been, I post so much, and everybody's saying, why aren't you doing a Patreon? And, I do have 2 podcasts that I very rarely update, but now that I'm off the road, I'm going to update my podcasts more. Because, I mean, when I did the Cat House Hollywood podcast, I had like 4 podcasts in the top 6 on iTunes, which was like, wow. Mm-hmm. And even though I was getting, 30,000 downloads, I got no money on it. I didn't get paid for doing this because I did it all by myself, and I didn't have advertising. But with social media, I do it by myself. I finally just got off Twitter or X. I just did that about 2 weeks ago. I go, I'm done. Fuck you guys. Because it it was all I was seeing was just, you know, you can read a tweet and pretty much guess who somebody's voting for many times.
Yeah.
And, look, tell me that you're going to go see this show. Tell me that you like this new album. Tell me that you just got exposed. I don't really care who you're voting for. And I would like to think that all of us genuinely want the same thing, which is something good, but you don't know anymore. It's like there's so much hatred out there. It's like, you know, I'm so busy talking about how rad it is that Gojira killed it in the Olympics, and all everybody's talking about is this and that and this and that, and they're promoting gay and they're promoting. I'm like, first of all, it's France, okay? And France has always been very, very open, but it wasn't. I mean, take from it what you want. But while, hey, look, do I like seeing guys in drag kissing each other? No, not necessarily, but it doesn't trigger me. I just say, okay, they're having fun, you know. But me, what I remember is, holy crap, I'm going to go back and watch Gojira again, and I'll be pissed off that Kelly Clarkson talked over Gojira and didn't even say who the band was to give them more cred, not more cred because they've got that, but broaden their audience. But instead, everybody's like, well, I'm boycotting the Olympics. How the fuck is you boycotting the Olympics going to do anything? Like, if you really have that much problems with somebody that acts a little bit different than you, then the problem is you. The problem, you're not going to make anything change.
Are you looking for a safe way to bet online where there is something for everyone, including yourself? Then go to betonline.ag, where I am sure you will find something. Don't forget, it's betonline.ag for the most variety and the safest way to bet online.
You know, I got into a huge argument online because of the whole thing about the kids are saying that they are identifying as cats, so they had to put litter boxes in their classrooms. It is a 110% fucking lie. And I just dove deep into even finding the high schools in Michigan that happened. It never fucking happened. But people want to glom on that, and they want to say, like, look, you know, if you drink Bud Light, it's going to make your kids gay. You know, I mean, what most people don't know is most gay people that have kids don't necessarily want their kids to be gay because they know the problems that they've had. But what they've said is they want their kids to be however their kids feel comfortable. I am absolutely heterosexual. I'm 110% heterosexual. But you know what? Heterosexual? Yeah. Yes.
I'm teasing you. I know.
I like it a lot. But I don't have any problem with what somebody else wants to do. I don't give a shit. So that was what took me off of certain parts of social media, when instead of focusing on Twitter, I mean, that says something about you. If you saw one of the great heavy metal bands killing it in the Olympics with frickin' Marie Antoinette with heads and blood and in this, you know, if you're looking at that and you decided that the Olympics, did you see Gojira in the Olympics?
Of course, because I love Gojira. I remember when they first toured with Lamb of God. Yeah.
Yes. So
I was happy.
If you watch the Olympics, and it says a lot about you, if you're a metal fan and you decided to talk about that instead of talking about Gojira, we're all bitching about never getting anybody good to play the Super Bowl halftime. Well, guess what? The Olympics are bigger than the Super Bowl. And Gojira played it, and Gojira didn't soften up. I wish it went longer, but I decided to use that as my takeaway because that made me feel good. Instead of using, there were things that were during the Olympics that I thought were stupid. There were things that I didn't like. There were things that, like, I also, look, if you're going to, and this sounds like it's a contradiction considering I am accepting of everybody, but I also do wish that we had beautiful women in commercials again. And I don't think there's anything wrong with products using handsome men and women wearing sexy clothes. If you think that we have to accept everybody and accept the big and all the different sizes, I agree with that. But you also got to accept women that look freaking hot too. Like, I'm okay with that as well. And it seems like we've gotten rid of that, but I really don't want to get a political rant on it. What I meant to say is Gojira was really good at the Olympics.
I was so happy to see them. That was amazing. I mean, I remember when they first came to the States to play, I interviewed them for my metal show that I had, and I love Gojira. Like, that was amazing. I mean, they've done so much. Like, in Europe, every year they have Eurovision, but for some reason they will never let a Norwegian black metal band win Eurovision. They'll let them compete. Like, who was it? Obsidian was in one year. They've had other ones, but nobody has ever won Eurovision, no metal band. which really sucks. I hope we get it one day. And I think the only good halftime show we've ever had was Kid Rock. Remember that? Like years ago, I think Kid Rock was the halftime. Did we have that, or was it Britney Spears?
I think the best halftime we ever had was Prince, because I thought Prince was great, and I remember he played the Foo Fighters song, and I thought that was good. But yeah, he played "I'm giving the best of you." I'm a big Prince fan, but I mean, to be honest, I don't sit here and think about my favorite bands getting these big accolades. Motorhead is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Motorhead's to me, the greatest rock and roll band, the best heavy band. I mean, I love the Stones, but I mean, I've got 2 Motorhead tattoos. I love Motorhead. I was friends with Lemmy. I love Motorhead, but they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, you know what? Some bands are just good, that they're bad, that there still are bands. You know, I don't need every band to be accepted by the masses. I don't give a rat's ass if, you know, certain metal bands don't get Grammys, because they're still good. You know, it doesn't take anything away from Iron Maiden to not be in the Hall of Fame. You know, and to say rock is dead, well, there's a billion great bands out there, and there's always bands that I'm discovering that might have been around, you know, back in the day that I didn't listen to. I mean, that's the beauty of today, as opposed to on Headbangers Ball. I listen to whatever I want to listen to. And if there's a band that I get into, I go, okay, I was not really into this back when I hosted Headbangers Ball. And I started listening to this band. So, you know, that's fun. I get to listen to whatever I want, and I go to shows, and it's funny. They put me on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which
that's fun.
It's fucking stupid. The Monsters of Rock cruise is fucking stupid. I did.
Why?
People on it were fun, but the guy that promoted it was silly. I got banned from it, and I really don't need some fucking 60-year-old guy with a fringe jacket going up to me going, "You suck. You played Slayer instead of Slaughter." I'm like, fuck you, you know? Oh, what? You killed first people on the Monsters Rock. However, I do go on the Headbangers boat. And that is people that are mostly younger than me, that I go there and I just sit and watch bands that some of them I'm not familiar with, some of them I am, and I become fans. And there are all these people and this is, I'm sorry, I have nothing against bands like Firehouse and Steelheart and Slaughter. They're not my thing. They never were, even though we played them on Headbangers Ball. And as I've got older, I've kind of tended to listen to more and more heavy stuff. And I've become friends with a lot of these heavier bands that I'm not doing Headbangers Ball. And you know, I love all genres. You know, I love Fit for an Autopsy and Faster Pussycat. You know, that's what I do. That's me.
Yeah, I've always felt like that. Like I could listen to American Angel, I could listen to Overdrive, I could listen to Damnation, then I can go over to Cannibal Corpse or King Diamond, then I can go to Merciful Fate, but then I can bounce back to Sepultura. And I can get back down to Sato, which no one, like, I told Don Jameson about this band and sent him links. He's like, oh, actually, they're pretty cool. So I'm obsessed. I'm sorry. I just get on these things sometimes. Like, I was on my Killer Dwarfs, like, kick today and Sato. And, like, I had to. I mean, I mix it up with the gym with everything. Then you throw in a little bit of this and that, like some NWA here and there, but it's not always just one thing, you know?
No, it can't be. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of music. Music is something that's your personal, you know, I don't say like, what the fuck, you don't like Rocky Road? You know, what's wrong with you? Like, the whole name 3 songs thing is the most pathetic, stupid thing in the world. And I get it. I understand it. Why people get upset when they see kids wearing metal bands. But they don't understand. Rock is not dead. But if a kid is wearing a Lamb of God shirt and he only heard, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Okay, here's a perfect example. Many years ago, I went to go see Slayer, and the first band on was Children of Bodom, who I had never seen at the time, right?
Really?
And I had never, this was a long time ago.
Yeah,
it was Children of Bodom, I think it was Children of Bodom, Lamb of God, and Slayer. Long time ago. But I'd never seen Children of Bodom. So I was walking around, and me and my friends were like, yeah, we're going to go backstage. And I'm like, okay. And I walk up, and I see this guitar stuff there, Lexi. And I'm like, guys, go ahead. And I just stood there on the floor by myself watching Children of Bodom. And I was like, fuck, this band is great. So I want to support a new band because not a lot of people had heard of them at the time. So I walked over to the merch table and I bought the t-shirt. Now, if some guy went up to me and said, name 3 songs, At that time, I wouldn't know 3 songs. I'd be like, fuck you. You know, here's a band that I'm watching, and I know these bands aren't making a lot of money, so I'm going to go buy the T-shirt to support the band. Now, if you're a kid, okay, and you're wearing well, I'm not going to use Slaughter to Prevail. I'll use an older band like a Lamb of God, which I hate calling older. But if there's a kid and he's wearing a Lamb of God shirt, and you go up to that kid and you say, name 3 songs, he's going to go, and he's going to think, wow, metal people are mean. But if you see a kid and he's wearing a Lamb of God t-shirt and you say, you know, they used to be called Burn the Priest, and, you know, Mark Morton has written a book, and you start talking, this kid is going to go, fuck, metal fans are rad. And that's what's going to keep the scene. The scene is not going to die. But if all of us old people start putting down the kids that are helping to elevate the scene, there won't be a scene. You know, you got to welcome people. There are things that do piss me off. And I understand the mentality about name 3 songs. You know, if I see Kim Kardashian wearing if I see Kanye West wearing an Exodus shirt, does it piss me off a little bit? Yeah, it does. But maybe somebody will say, who's Exodus? You know, I don't know. But, if there's a kid that gets into a band, I want kids to listen. I want, you know, I use Exodus because I'm still very, very good friends with Zetro and Gary. And I remember going to see Exodus, I don't even know how long ago. And Gary and Steve walked out, and they're talking to this kid and his parent. And they were so nice, and they're such sweet guys. And I'm watching, and I'm like, that's how you fucking build metal. That's how you keep it going, by welcoming kids to this scene, you know? Because look, if I go see like the typical example when I say this story, and I say this story in my show. Never mind, I'm not even going to say it about Monomarth. But when I went to a Monomarth, and how much
I love
when
that.
When I went to go see a Monomarth, I didn't go like the cynical adult that's going, this is stupid. You know, I went to a Monomarth. I was that same kid that saw Eddie walking and I'm like, that's a real monster. Or the kid that saw Alice Cooper live and said, oh my God, he's going to chop his head off with a guillotine. How is he still going to play? I don't sit there with my arms folded saying like, oh God, this is stupid. It's like, no, when I go to a metal show, I'm a kid and I get back into it. And I like when I find a band that maybe started in 1980 that was a heavy band that I was not into at the starting. I mean, I'm the first one to admit it, and I know people are going to give me shit, but I didn't even get into Possessed until like last year, you know. And they're like, probably played them on Headbangers Ball. But now you know, I can't. Even though I've always liked the Cro-Mags, I listen to the Cro-Mags all the time now. It's like, you know, I listen to whatever I listen to, and I don't know. I got on a tangent again.
It's a good one because I go to shows still.
I'm like David Lee Roth. If you ever interview David Lee Roth, you could ask him about chocolate, and he'll start telling you about his favorite car. You ask me a question, I won't even answer. I'll just go on a tangent about something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
No, that's fine. Like, okay, so yeah, the first time I saw Monomarth, they opened up for Children of Bodom at the House of Blues. But I agree with you with the metal snobs, okay? So when you go to Japan, it's different going to a show there than here. It's like they kind of stand there just wanting to be impressed, but it's just Japanese culture. I was wrestling there a few times, and it's just a different culture than what we have here, or like South America. Like South America, they're fucking crazy. They love their metal.
I went to Japan when I was on Headbangers with Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks. Huge in Japan. And I remember that he walked out of his hotel to go by the bus, and all these Japanese girls were running over towards the bus, and then they all got in line, single file, and they all just waited. I'm like, wow, you know, it was like, it is a different, and they sit there quietly, and then when the song's over, they make noise. I mean, it's just a different culture.
Yeah, one thing I like about it, I had a previous guest on, we were talking about social media and phones and being distracted. One thing I did notice a few months ago when I was there is like little kids, they sit at the table properly dressed. They're not wearing their fucking pajamas. They're in actual clothing. They sit there, they eat, they connect, they have conversations. They don't like do this at the dinner table and like, you know, leave the whole thing down. They interact. And it's such a nice culture and so refreshing. Now, getting back to like shirts. So I have all of my old concert shirts. I have stuff from Rush in the late 70s when a babysitter took me. I have my Black Sabbath shirt from Mob Rules Tour, Exodus, Toxic Waltz, all my Maiden jerseys. So I wore my Rush jersey out, right? And these, oh my God, that's like so cool. Like, oh my God, how much is that shirt? It's like first of all, I wouldn't sell it to you. And I did the, do you know who Rush is? Like, name one song. Oh, no, I just think it's cool. It looks like really retro and cool. And that's like stylish. It's like, go fuck yourself. Go eat shit and live and just stay out of my, orbit and we're good. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Like I understand what you're saying with people buying shirts just because they look scary. Like that's kind of stupid.
They don't look scary.
When kids are getting into band shirts, you know, there's nothing I love more than seeing a little kid with his battle vest and seeing all these different patches of different genres. I'm like, fuck yes, you know, and that's the beauty of it. You know, I can listen to so many different bands, and I've always been, even though despite what everybody thinks, back in the Headbangers ball days and even in the Cat House days, because of my background comes from punk rock. That's where I came from. Yep. And that's where I came from. But I've always tended to go towards heavier bands. And so when I start listening to, and I'll use, you know, Fit for an Autopsy again, when I started listening to them, who I really, really like, and I try to tell some of my friends that they don't like that type of music. Like a lot of my friends don't like that, the screaming, and I do, you know, I that's what I listen to a lot of, but I also listen to a lot of, you know, I mean, I honestly still think Cinderella is just an incredible rock and roll band, but I'm still listening to a lot of the really, really heavy shit, you know, like.
I just listened to Fire and Ice by Cinderella, like while I was at the gym a little while ago. I used to work at a record store in the Village. I think you might have come in. It's Only Rock and Roll. It was in the West Village. We were across the street from Electric Lady Studios. So Cinderella came in one day. I got to meet like Fred Corey. It was so interesting. But huh?
Fred's such a good guy.
They were all really nice, but I just wasn't that impressed by them. I don't know what it is. Like everyone else was like all over them at the store, and I knew they were famous, but I just didn't give a shit, you know? And I don't know. It just, I wasn't even like around. I wasn't at the store to meet people. I wanted to see like all the really cool bands that were coming in from Sweden and Germany that nobody else heard of. And I still think a lot of people haven't heard of these bands, but I still have my vinyl. Do you keep your vinyl? Do you still have vinyl?
You know what? I have vinyl. I buy vinyl, but yeah, I need to set everything up so it sounds better because I love nothing more than vinyl. I love the whole way you play vinyl and pick it up and listen to a whole album. And I still do buy vinyl, but sometimes it's just easier to put it on Spotify. But I do listen to vinyl. And now that I'm going to be home for a little bit, I'll probably spend more time listening to vinyl. And I always buy my friends' albums. Like that's the one thing. It's like when it comes to buying band T-shirts and albums, I'm probably buying my friends' bands and T-shirts, which I probably used to ask. I probably could get for free, but it's like I feel good knowing I'm buying something from this band, knowing that they're going to get some of the money.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Lizzie Borden tour this fall. I like buying their merchandise. They have some of the coolest shirts. And I still have like all of the older albums, like Visualize, everything else. What was one of the first albums you bought? Metal album, that is.
Probably like $1 Billion Babies or something like that. But
really?
Alice Cooper was a very big, I do a whole thing about Alice Cooper in my show, but Alice Cooper was always a very big part of my life. And I loved Alice. I was just such an Alice Cooper fan. And then I think the first heavier stuff that I got into after, I mean, I don't know if you would call it heavy, but I remember, you know, the first time, and it's funny because I'm so not a fan now, but when I started getting into Motley Crue, and you know, when I first saw that Livewire video, and then I bought Shout at the Devil. But you know, to say you were a Motley Crue fan back then, now in my circles, it's like nobody admits it. But I still love those first two albums, and then it just kind of got into everything. Like I was always listening to, you know, there was a lot of punk rock bands that kind of crossed over into metal, and but I don't know. It was kind of a progression. I don't know what the first like real heavy record that I bought was, you know, because I don't even know if you count Metallica in there. You know, when I bought Master of Puppets or you know, God, I used to love Seek and Destroy. But I guess when I got into heavier and heavier and heavier stuff, I don't even know. But I'm still buying records. I mean, I've always liked a lot of different genres, but now it's like, you know, I'm listening. You know, I always talk about Lamb of God because I still love that band. It's a Low Waist, and I listen to a lot of Exodus, and I like Kubla Khan TX. I like Power Trip. I like the Stray Cats. I like everything.
I remember them. I still have that on vinyl, and I still have my old Stray Cats shirt. Now I feel like putting on my Toxic Waltz t-shirt to go back outside. Or my metal shirt, Metal Church, which was one of my favorite bands. Do you remember what your first concert actually was?
The first show that I remember going to, which is interesting because I just found out that Aerosmith is done because Steven Tyler, they're done because Steven Tyler he had vocal surgery, can't play anymore. But the first rock concert that I went to, I was just some like surfer skater, and I was this kid, probably like 12 years old, and I went to go see Aerosmith play, and the opening band was AC/DC with Bon Scott. So that was one of the first shows that I remember going to as a little kid. But after that, I can't remember. I mean, of course, I went to Alice Cooper shows. I went to a lot of, but as far as, those are the concerts that I remember going to as a little kid. Like a little kid.
That sounds like a good lineup.
I remember being 15 and going to see Ted Nugent, and I smoked so much weed that I passed out. Maybe I was 14 or 15. That was cat scratch fever. That's how old I am. Didn't
you have a mullet when you first started Headbangers Ball? You kind of had a mullet.
I fucking never had a mullet.
Then what was it that you had?
Long hair.
It wasn't just long. You had bangs.
I had long hair. My hair grew, put it this way. I shaved my head bald on the sides. My head was bald for my show 2 weeks ago. This is how long it grows. And people don't know. I tried to do a show on a Gimme Metal app called The Ball, which was like real metal. And my hair was like down to here. And that was only like 4 years ago. And then I just said, fuck it. And I did the mohawk thinking it was going to be very temporary. But now I like it. So I just always keep that. I always had long hair. I never had short on the sides, long in the back. If anybody finds a picture of me with a mullet, post it. There isn't one. But I always had long hair. And when my hair was so long, like back in Headbangers Ball, everybody got so pissed off that I cut it in 1992. But I just, I was riding motorcycles then. I just didn't like to deal with the long hair.
Well, wait a second. That's kind of a mullet hair, dude. This is kind of a mullet with the blonde hair. That's sort of mullety.
Okay. Look, Jasmine, there's things in your life that you'd like to forget, right? Well, that blonde hair part, that's my part. I tend to not recall that. There's a picture that I have of me sitting at a table with Ronnie James Dio, Rob Halford, Sebastian Bach, and Lonnie Anderson. And you won't find that picture in my house because I look like fucking Eminem. Like, that was when I was married to a hairdresser that kept on doing ridiculous things. And the blonde was, I don't know if it was you could call it a mullet. You could call it whatever you want. It just looked like shit. I don't know what I was thinking.
You weren't that bad, but I knew that hairdresser through a third party. But yeah, it was a very wild time. And I remember seeing you at the Rainbow one night too, years back then when the Rainbow was actually really cool. Like, so much has changed on the Strip now. Do you want to spice things up in the bedroom? Well, go to adamandeve.com where you can get something for yourself or that special someone. adamandeve.com and put in the code Krazytrain, that's crazy with a K, and get 50% off of most items and a bunch of free goodies. Again, it's adamandeve.com and put in my code Krazytrain, it's crazy with a K, and enjoy up to 50% off of most items and, of course, some great freebies. Now, I like your pointers on how to keep metal alive in this scene, and I like that, support the scene, always buy stuff, and definitely expose the younger generation to this as well, which is super important.
And I think the reason that I stay somewhat young is because I still do the same shit I did. Obviously, I'm smarter. Obviously, I'm sore when I wake up a lot. I learned my lesson breaking my elbow skateboarding 2 years ago, so I can't do that anymore. But I love listening to music. I love going to shows. I love going to shows. I love listening to music. I love wearing band. I'm almost always wearing a band t-shirt. And I just never stopped, You got to support what you love, I guess. Yes.
Do you think, okay, what was your thought when you first heard about all the news on the MTV website coming down? I feel like it's just this decline or like erasing of so many important things in culture.
I didn't give a fuck because it's MTV News. That's what went down. MTV News, which nobody paid attention to. And I'm sure there's still clips of certain key items, but it wasn't the MTV shows that went down. It was MTV News that went down. So I didn't give a
used to
rat's
watch
ass.
that though.
Right. Well, Kurt Cobain is still dead. So, I don't think there's anything groundbreaking from MTV News. And the truth is, I have mixed feelings about MTV, but if I talked about it, it would just take forever. I have good and bad, but, probably you wouldn't be talking to me if I didn't get that job on MTV. So I owe a lot to MTV.
Well, maybe you would be, maybe just under different guise, maybe not as like Riki Rachtman, headbanger extraordinaire. So what do we have coming up for you? Your show just came off the road. What else do you have going on?
I'm hoping to do a book of One Foot in the Gutter. We're working on either a docu-series about One Foot in the Gutter, which is those stories. I have a coffee company called Cat House Coffee. I still have an apparel company called Cat House Hollywood that sells shirts worldwide still a lot. But as far as big things, I think what I'm focusing is we had camera crews film several shows. And I think that's what I'm going to work on now. That's what one of my main things is. But I'm also playing catch up. And the truth is, I'm open to a lot of things. So I don't know. I worked in NASCAR for 20 years. I was working for the American Flat Track Series on Fox Sports. I did a race, a couple months ago, but that's not really happening anymore. So I don't know. I'm just going to work my ass off. I mean, I'm scared, but I'm also very, very hungry. And I know that, hell, 20 years ago, I was a shitty car salesman. So who knows,
I would have bought a car from you, but I like flat tracks. I used to go to the flat tracks in Paris quite a bit. I have friends that do those. I like the hooligan races. Yes. Those are my favorites.
Oh, so do I. Hooligan races are gnarly. But I worked for Fox Sports, and I've worked in, people don't know that I was working NASCAR for 4 times longer than I worked on Headbangers Ball.
Really?
Because when Headbangers Ball ended, I'm like, okay, what is it that I really like? Well, I love motorsports. So I just worked my ass off and tried to get in no matter what it took. And then I had a nationally syndicated radio show. I was on, Speed Channel. I was on everything. And when the Racing Rocks show ended, that's when I put my effort towards the One Foot in the Gutter shows, which was, who would have ever thought, and I don't have an opening act. I don't have another act. It's just me on stage. And who would have ever thought that I would have sold out Sydney, Australia, where they didn't get Headbangers Ball. So, and I didn't know that until I got on stage. I'm like, I mentioned Headbangers Ball. I was like, you guys used to watch Headbangers Ball. They go, we didn't get it. I'm like, why the fuck are you here? But it was still very flattering that they didn't even get Headbangers Ball and that I sold out in Sydney.
Maybe they just heard how cool you are.
I don't think it was that. I tried to
Well,
tell
they
them.
probably follow you on social media or something and saw your videos.
Who knows?
I mean, people go on the internet nowadays, but so many things were not archived really well from the 90s or late 80s, but some things were, some things weren't. I just finished up a Jerry Springer documentary, and they had a hard time finding some of my footage, but they found it. Like, the stuff's out there when you find it, but you just got to go down all those like tiny rabbit holes and so forth. If people want to find you on social media, how do they find you besides just putting in a Google search?
Well, on Instagram, I'm Riki Rachtman. I also have a Cat House Hollywood Instagram page. On Facebook, I'm Riki Rachtman. CatHouseHollywood.com is my website. Cat House Hollywood Podcast, which just tells all the stories of the old days. And you never know where I might turn up. You never know.
Yeah, I know. This is great. But
I piss a lot of people off because I don't go away. I'm like that cockroach that you keep on thinking, he's a has-been, he's done. And then I pop up somewhere else. I mean, it gets to be a point that when somebody calls me a has-been after I've just sold out like 30 shows, I'm like, okay. And why is has-been something bad? Like, if you did anything in the past that was great and then you didn't do anything else, you still did something that was great. But I'm always there.
You're still a bin instead of like not there.
One day, yes. And one day I'll stop. One day, probably in the next couple of years, I'll say, you know what? Thank you, everybody, for the support, and I'll vanish. and I don't know what I'll do then.
It never happens. I'm telling you, trust me. I escaped all the way up to Norway and all these other places. And some guy recognized me at a bar. And then someone asked me to go on his show, his talk show. I'm like, no one's going to recognize me. No one's going to give a fuck. It was like their highest rated episode. So, just when you think it's there, it's not.
Right. Yeah. Oh, exactly.
It's an addiction.
Yes, it is. And it's weird because, do I like getting recognized when I go out? Absolutely. So as long as I'm not eating or taking a piss. I love it when people recognize me. And, you get used to that kind of stuff. And that's why, the reason I went on tour was also very selfish reasons, because I wanted to feel that rush on a stage, and I got to do it. So, and I got to do the last show just in Vegas, and it was ridiculous, and it was really fun. And it's, I wish you would have seen it, because there's so much stuff that you'd never expect happen in my show.
Well, I'll come check it out one day. I promise, when next it's back on its legs. And definitely when I have my show back up, it's called A Weird Kind of Fame. You got to come check it out. It'll be fun.
I would love to. I would love to.
Hey, really quick, did you write your own show?
Every single word.
That's awesome.
I wrote the show. My show is very multimedia, and there's videos and photos that I interact with. And so sometimes I don't even know if something's funny until I try it. And so I wrote every single word in my show I wrote.
It's a process. It really is. I have someone helping me rewrite one. It's funny. We talked about suicide. Well, it's not funny about suicide. My ex, who helped me with the show, he offed himself about 2 weeks ago. Not because of the show, by the way. I think he had other reasons. So I'm still like trying to deal with that. So I'm just trying to stay busy and just going back to the show, because I know that's what he wanted me to have done. But I think I'm one of the very few people out there who could say that I have a dead ex. But anyway, thanks for joining me. I know that's very dark.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people that could say they wish they had.
That's true. As long as I didn't have anything to do with it directly. Right. So I hope to see you soon. Thanks for joining us, and sit tight.
Very nice to see you again.
You too, virtually.